Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World episode 201. I'm your host John Jordan. Don't forget to check out my daily email about blockchain gaming. You can find that at gamestx.substack.com. In today's episode I'm talking to John Smedley. So John is very well known, particularly in the world of MMOs. He started off working on EverQuest and then went on to head up Sony Online Entertainment in its glory years when it was doing things like Star Wars Galaxies and PlanetSide, and one of the first Battle Royale games, H1Z1. But now, obviously, he's doing a blockchain game, or at least a game with blockchain elements. So he started a new studio called Distinct Possibilities, and the game is Reaper Actual, coming out in sort of early access before the end of 2025. So obviously some key questions. Why is he making a game with blockchain elements? And why am I saying a game with blockchain elements rather than blockchain game? So one of the interesting sort of key parts of the discussion is why Reaper Actual will be released in a pure Web 2 version for Steam and Epic Game Store, with a Web 3 version in which there are in-game assets, NFTs that can be traded, that will only be available through the game's own website. So we talk about the sort of obvious strengths and weaknesses of this sort of split approach, and really sort of drill down on why John thinks in the long term the blockchain version will win out. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, and on with the show. Hello everybody, and welcome to the show. Very pleased today I have John Smedley on the podcast. How's it going, John?
Going well. Excited to be here.
Good, and I'm very thankful you are here. Because plenty to talk about, and a few that maybe normally people sort of give their potted history, but I think probably people should probably know what you've been up to. You're pretty famous, infamous. I don't know what the what word you like to use to describe your very long career in really MMORPGs, everything from EverQuest all the way through to Sony Online Entertainment, and you did some stuff with Amazon as well. But we're here to talk about Reaper Actual, which is the surprising announcement, really. I think obviously not for you, but for the blockchain gaming people. I think a few people knew. I saw some people on Twitter sort of talking that there's going to be a big announcement when you announced it, but I didn't know you were up to something. So I guess let's just kick off straight away with what is Reaper Actual.
So Reaper Actual, it's basically an MMO FPS. It is a mix between a first-person shooter, an MMORPG, and from our perspective, it's a completely new kind of game that is coming out that we hope is going to be the start of a new genre. It's open world persistent shooter is sort of the colloquial term we are trying to use.
And obviously, you've made sort of some games sort of around that sort of genre. You're saying this one's a new one, but obviously you're pretty well known for PlanetSide versions 1 and 2. So, how similar would it be to that? What are you sort of innovating on compared to those sort of older games?
So it's a completely new style of game. Mm-hmm. So the way the game takes place on this massive 16 kilometer by 12 kilometer, which in gaming terms is huge. It's 4x the size of the largest map in Warzone, by the way. But it is this massive open world game that is controlled by these different AI factions that are run by this AI that we've created called Cerberus. And the players play as these fallen tier 1 operators from all these different intelligence services around the world. And they adventure through this world that we've created. And their goal is to, kind of level up the way you would see in a traditional MMORPG. But players, there's something that's very unique about our game, not just the size of the landmass we're talking about. Players actually have a home in the world called their base, and their base can be raided. So the way I like to describe the game, the short version is if Escape from Tarkov were set in an open world and it had a baby with Rainbow Six Siege, that would be Reaper Actual. So it's got extraction elements where players are out, they're doing missions both for and against the different AI factions, and they end up taking their loot back to their base. But if they're not careful in the world, they can generate heat in a very similar to a Grand Theft Auto, and their base can actually be raided in real time. So, and the bases can grow from small, like a bunker base, to absolutely huge, like mansion bases where there's whole compounds. And we want to allow outfits, which are clans in our game, to actually own these things and actually have to defend them from other from other outfits.
Okay. So you've got quite a lot of interlinking sort of features there. I mean, I guess one of the interesting ones we're talking about, sort of Escape from Tarkov versus sort of Rainbow Six. I mean, Escape from Tarkov is one of these games that seems to get spoken about a lot because it's obviously been successful, and I think lots of people think it was sort of too hardcore. So sort of the extraction bit is really competitive, and everyone sort of likes that risk reward, or a certain type of player likes that risk reward thing. But I think a lot of game designers and companies think they can sort of make it more, maybe not mass market, but make it more mass market than it already is. Lots of people have tried to do that. How do you think that this game will actually, maybe sort of succeed where other games don't? Nothing seems to have sort of surpassed Tarkov in terms of a game that's cited in that way.
Actually, there have been several very highly competitive games. Let me start with Delta Force, which is on Steam. Terrific game, in my opinion, one of the best games in the extraction genre right now. There's also Arena Breakout Infinite, which is, and I played the crap out of both. Those are both AAA games that do an amazing job. But they're also following a formula, which is this session-based game. What makes our game truly unique is that it's persistent. So instead of starting a round and ending a round, you actually are just in this virtual world that we've created. And it makes a very large difference because, for example, let's say somebody kills you over and over again, you have an opportunity to get revenge on them in our world. You die, you go back to your base, and then you can venture out and hunt down the person that did that. Very, very different from a one death and you're out round-based game. So, we think we've got a material difference there in fun. In terms of how we're addressing mass market, first thing we did was we decided to make Call of Duty our locomotion and our gunplay target. Both of those are what I would call, the best of the best in shooters right now. And the sales speak for themselves. But if you'll notice on the PC, if you're a student of gaming, you will notice that Call of Duty on PC gets beat every single day by games like PUBG and other shooters that have assembled markets and actually beat them out on the PC. Doing it on the console is a different story, but we are, for now anyways, launching on the PC. So we've got a material difference, and we're addressing the approachability by making it less hardcore. So the first way we're doing that is by giving players that have Reapers, which are our operators, they actually have default loadouts. So in Escape from Tarkov, you can be beat down so bad that you have to become a scab, which is basically going out and you're playing as your opposing players. In our world, we don't want to beat players down that bad. We want the bare minimum to be what the particular Reaper they have, which are operators, and they have unique abilities, but they also come with unique loadouts. So we are trying to make something that's much more approachable to a larger number of people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just you sort of said it's a persistent game, but obviously in terms of sort of there's an open world, and I think that you're sort of quoting about maybe 200 players in that big world.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously
by the way, we intend to grow that 200 number up into the thousands as we add more and more landmass.
Okay. But in terms of the base, but in terms of the bases, obviously are sort of also sort of persistent in terms of what you've got in there.
Correct.
But presumably, if I'm in my base and then I go into the world, I'm going into an instant world because you're going to want thousands of players. So you basically are sort of creating lots of these instant versions of the island. So the topology of the island itself isn't persistent. It's more the interaction between the players and
no, it's actually
AI.
the islands themselves.
Okay.
So the way persistence works in this game is that Cerberus controls all of the locations of all of the AI on all the different worlds.
Okay.
You are basically, when you first come in, when you get into your first gaming session, you are given an affinity with the other players on that map. If you joined your friends, you're given an affinity with them. And if you die, you go right back into that same world. And if you log in the next day, we are trying to put you back into that exact same world. If none of your friends are on, then it doesn't matter because the persistence at your base is still there. So you're always getting having access to the same supplies. But the state of the world is also something that we persist across all of the different game servers. So, for example, we're planning on telling stories over 3-month periods we're calling seasons, very traditional in gaming. And those stories are going to have, like, for example, we have this, one of the different AI factions that we have are called Metro. They are the former Metro police from this island. This island, the backstory is that there was a massive civil war. Conveniently, all the civilians have left, which is really awesome. We didn't want to be that game. And because of that, these criminal organizations have taken over many parts of the island. So you are doing missions for and against these. So, but what makes our game very unique is that Cerberus, what it literally does is I think of it as a crap magnet is probably the best way to put it. It might give me a mission to go kill a high value target. And it might give you a mission to go defend that same target. Its entire goal and its reason for existence is to use the NPCs and the missions as a vehicle for pitting players against one another.
Okay. Obviously, AI in the game space at the moment is well, obviously AI everywhere is pretty part of the conversation. In the game space, it does seem sort of a particular sort of nuance. Maybe it's a certain type of particular sort of I don't know, attitude which doesn't certainly like genAI. I mean, obviously you're not talking about genAI, I assume. I mean, yours sounds like a bit more sort of traditional. Maybe it is. I don't know.
We do use some genAI. But the way that we use it, like we went out of our way to do it super ethically. So what we use genAI for are things like to create, when we're creating missions. So we write, the way we've made this and the way we've built the engine for this and the tools for it are that we make a storyline for a season. As part of that season, we'll create maybe 5,000 missions that we're pre-creating. Yep. And what we use genAI for is to come up with things like NPC names, and to come up with some backstory that fits into each of the overall themes based on the season. And then we have a human being actually review every one of those things. That gives us a lot more storytelling variety. So, for example, if you're going to go kill a low-level drug lord, we want that to be a unique name within our gaming world. It might create that character, and that character exists just like in movies, solely for the reason of somebody to slaughter them, right? Yeah. So what we're trying to do there is give more variety and make it more interesting. We're also using a company called 11 Labs for our text to speech. Here's what's awesome about 11 Labs. This is I know there's a lot of feeling out there right now about voice actors, and we agree with that completely. The entire reason we went with 11 Labs is that they make it possible for us to select voice actors that are actually getting a back end on these things. That is super important to us to do it ethically. Like we're not one of those companies that sees AI as a bad thing, but it can be done if you don't use it correctly in an ethical way. I think it can be easily abused. And there's this sense out there right now, genAI is horrible. It's not. It's all about how you use it and choosing to use it in a way that is good for all the people that help making it, and for the people that are playing the game.
Yeah. Which obviously sort of brings us on. Sort of funny how the same people who were moaning about blockchain and now seem, if anything, even more sort of angry about genAI and even more sort of reactionary. So. Obviously, the reason you're on the podcast is that this is a game that at least one version, at least a version of it, uses blockchain. I guess to take the sort of wider sort of question, everything you've explained at the moment is in a sense from sort of game design point of view, sort of fairly standard. I mean, it's not like you sort of taken different sort of inspiration and put something sort of new together. But where did blockchain sort of come into the mix on this one?
So first of all, I'm a huge believer in the concept of player ownership, but I'm not going to go too much into that because I feel like it's been, been blah 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 to death. So what I'll give you is our take on it. We believe in this concept of an ecosystem around our game. So we are bringing a lot more than just the game features to bear in a new way. First of all, we're going to let our players rent servers from us, and where this comes in with blockchain is that we're going to let people also monetize those servers, which is very new. So our players will be able to rent from us, and they will be able to do that with crypto if they want to, or without if they want to do that on Steam or Epic. And the idea is that players can mod our servers. Players can, and if they mod them too much, they fall outside of what we call vanilla. Vanilla is just a set of pull downs. Like, for example, our game has a day-night cycle. We will allow users to, if they want to make their server an all-night server, just as an example, right? Yep. That still comes under vanilla. But if they want to, they can take our game, which isn't a battle royale, but they could add a battle royale on top of it. They could rent a server from us, and then they could turn around and charge for those servers if they so want to. We also are going to let users create the exact same things we're creating for users to purchase. So, for example, gun skins, operator skins, or what we call Reaper skins. And anything where there's a cosmetic feature, we're going to let users be able to make that and sell to one another. What blockchain gives us is, in our opinion, something that is amazing as compared to something like a Steam marketplace, because there's a direct connection. People can make money from that. We are not a play to earn game. That is not something that we are. But what we are is we want to build an ecosystem outside of our game where users can take what we've made and build something more out of it. The last two big genres in gaming, I would submit, are MOBAs, which came from as a direct result of a mod, and battle royales, which Brendan Green, we did the very first commercial battle royale called H1Z1 with Brendan directly because we were playing his mod. We think that the next big opportunity can be built on top of our game, which we think is going to be big in and of itself. But the creativity of end users powering that, but also pairing that with the ability for them to control who is going into the server. So they'll have the ability, for example, a YouTube streamer could say, only my subscribers can play here. That's a game changer in our opinion. And on the blockchain side, what it enables is this direct connection from player to other players that we think is going to be very powerful.
Oh, I wonder. So you made the point there. You want to make an ecosystem. Obviously, the point of an ecosystem is you want as broad a sort of funnel as possible. I wonder if the counter argument will be that there will be some people. I mean, you said there. You're going to have a Web 2 version on Steam. You're going to have a Web 2 version on Epic Game Store. The Web 3 version will just be available through the game's website. So, so to a degree, I imagine in the early years, the majority of your players will probably be on the Web 2 side of things. So you've sort of split that sort of ecosystem in the sense that you have to have a lot of players on the Web 2 side. I mean, you have to have a lot of players on the Web 3 side, but most of your players will be on the Web 2 side. Although the fact that you have a Web 3 version may stop some of those players playing the Web 2 version, so they'll never get into the funnel to sort of end up in the ecosystem side. So maybe would you have been better off just doing a Web 2 version and not having the same sort of commercial functionality on the ecosystem side, but the stuff you can do with Web 2. People have done these sort of mod things before with Web 2. You don't need Web 3 to do that. I'm just trying to sort of get an idea of the balance between, there's a sort of a reputational damage from some players who probably would really like your game if it was just a Web 2 game by you putting Web 3 in there, and that will have a downstream impact on the fact you want to build an ecosystem with all this sort of cool mod stuff in there.
Sure. So here's what I would say to that. There is absolutely a very real negative association between current, I don't even like calling them Web 2 gamers, because they're just gamers, and blockchain. And the reasons for that are many, largely tied to very scammy things. Looking at a lot of the previous games that have been released in Web3 as nothing more than monetization vehicles. We aren't those games. This game would not exist but for a bunch of great investors who believed in our vision of that we could take a Web 2 ecosystem and over time get people more and more comfortable with the Web 3 version by showing them, number one, it's optional, hardcore optional, like they never even have to look at it if they want to play it on Steam. The second thing, though, is that we're also trying to show them that the things that are being sold are actually beneficial for the larger ecosystem. So I would argue that there is no way for us to get the type of system adoption that I think we can get out of Web 3 as easily on Web 2. And let me explain why. Probably the number one marketplace in the world for games is Steam Community Marketplace.
Yep.
Big believer in that. If you look at, for example, the Counter-Strike 2 market, you will notice that most of the activity in the Counter-Strike 2 market takes place outside of Steam. And the estimates that I've seen have that valued at $4 billion. Not my estimates, by the way. You can do your own research on those things. I had somebody walk me through the math because I was like BS. I called BS on it until somebody I know that's very in that community walked me through the different websites. Holy cow, it's amazing. So this idea that games are selling outside of Steam and other similar places, that community exists. There's already a market for it. And the funny thing about that is with Counter-Strike 2, it's great. Like if you want to buy a knife for $24,000 for that game, peace. But then you're going to have some 13-year-old gank you with the free version of that knife and go after you specifically because you have that $24,000 knife. I love that. I love the drama. I think that's great storytelling. I also think that the other side of that, the people that go out and hunt these expensive knife-wielding people that play, is hysterically fun and is great. You can have a game that is pure and still have an ecosystem outside it, but the first thing you have to be able to do is convince users that you're serious about those two knives not having any material difference in game. So we are not a pay-to-win game. We never will be. So we're not going to let it's all about skill, player skill in our game. So we think that the ecosystem can be larger this way. And our belief is that while small at first, we think we'll start with roughly 8% of our players participating on the crypto side.
Okay.
And we think we can grow that over time by showing players, hey, we are not those other games. We are a game that takes this seriously and it's optional. And if you don't want to touch it, cool. Will there be some people that will just be like, screw you, you have crypto, the naysayers? Absolutely. We're not naive about that. But I can tell you with a straight face, when I went out to raise for this game, the people that were willing to take risks were some of the crypto investors, like a company like Bitcraft, which does both Web 2 and Web 3 investments. And they saw what I wanted to build, and our team has been building for the last couple of years. And they were like, hell yeah, let's do this. And so we're excited about it. And I think hopefully players will be able to, play the game and see for themselves, oh, well, maybe this isn't so bad, right? There's some great games out there. Like right now, Off the Grid is out there.
Yep.
And it launched. Nobody's, it hasn't caused some big uprising where it's being played. It's, it has crypto elements, at least on Epic, and it's not the end of the world. There are ways to do these games right. And we are one of those.
They actually just went live on Steam over the weekend, so it's been interesting looking at some of the feedback.
I've been enjoying watching it actually and playing it. I do want to correct something on one of your podcasts that I heard.
Please do.
I'm some over the hill 60-year-old whatever.
Yes.
I'm 56 and I bet you I game more than almost anybody that reads. I'm a 5-hour night gamer and I'm on weekends. It's at least 10 hours both days.
Yes.
So
I must apologize for that.
I love doing what I do and I'm having a good time doing it. And I'm going to keep doing it.
Good. I just sort of coming back. It's interesting because you have mentioned this before that when you're going out. I mean, obviously, even someone like you who's got a reputation, 30 years in the games industry. Going out to raise money, is generally not easy, and at the moment, really not easy. If you had been able to raise money from traditional developers who didn't have a sort of who weren't very bothered about Web3. Would you have just made a Web 2 game, or was it the fact that it was Bitcraft and Brevin Howard and some of the other sort of Web 2 people?
What it came down to is, and I'll actually call him out here, Carlos Pereira, who's the partner from Bitcraft that I spent a lot of time with. He knew that I believed strongly in ownership from previous conversations that we'd had, and we started talking about a way to do this that would be palatable to investors. Trying to raise enough money to make a AAA game like this when you're an indie studio, it's not easy. And he got me excited about it. and looking at what we could do that we think could be a vision that could encompass both Web 2 and Web 3. I think we have that. I think we're pulling that off. And I do know I'm expecting some backlash, but it's kind of a mic drop moment when you say, all right, look, first of all, it's completely optional. You want to play it on Steam, you'll never even see it. So now what? Now what do you got as an argument against it? If your argument is, well, screw you, I'm not going to do it anyways, peace. All I can do is with my teammates make a great game and hopefully let that do the talking.
Yeah. No, I think it's certainly I think over time I would say the sort of anger against blockchain has sort of dried up a little bit. And obviously, to some degree, the genAI is now taking the eye out of these sort of people. And as you say, there are
be something else. There's always something that puts gamers off.
You
know what shuts gamers up the most is when they just are playing a great game.
Yes,
because I'm one of them, right? And I will tell you, I am skeptical myself of some of the Web3 games that I've seen come out. So I respect that feeling because there's so much scammy stuff out there. And that gets a lot of airtime, and it should, right? We're just not that. And I want people to judge us by the game that we make and by sticking to what we say we're going to do about keeping it optional. Every one of our investors knew that coming in, and that's why we're excited with the investors that we got, because they're excited about the vision.
Sort of a slightly geeky point, because I like to know these things, and you're on my podcast, so I'll ask the question, I suppose. You've said you've raised $30.5 million. That was announced about sort of 2 weeks ago. But I'm always interested in sort of there's a time in when funding is announced, and there's obviously the time when sort of funding is agreed, and those two things that are not the same. And this game has been in development, I think, for 2 years. You've said, I think you got about 150 people, not all at your studio, but you got some outsourcing as well. So
it's more like 125, but
125. Okay, so it's still over 100. So is my point. So just sort of in terms of when the game started, when the funding happened, maybe there's some things you don't want to say, but is there anything you can sort of pin down around that?
Like I said, I'll answer any question you have. So we raised $17.5 million in May of 23.
Okay.
And then that was in our Series Seed round, led by Bitcraft, and then most recently we closed a Series A for the rest of the money in January of this last year.
Okay.
And the reason we didn't announce is, like, I'm a big believer in put up or shut up, and we wanted to have a game that was fun first and be able to show players the game and have it near to when we're going to start releasing versions for players.
One thing we haven't sort of got into is you've sort of talked a bit about sort of crypto and the use of servers and mods and how you build an ecosystem there. The other sort of, I guess, big thing is the bases are NFTs, or if you play the Web3 version, the bases are NFTs. That's correct, isn't it? So what's the thinking around that?
But it's also true. So here's, and this is something else I like to get out far and wide. I like people to know exactly what we're going to be monetizing. So in our game, your base is your entry into the world. We sell bases and we sell Reapers. We'll also have, typical battle pass where there'll be exclusive cosmetics locked into that. We'll have the standard things. But bases can be bought and sold, and that can be done on Steam Community Market, or that can be done on with Web3 on our website. And we have a marketplace that we're developing in conjunction with the awesome company Sequence.
Yes.
And our goal there is to make it so that players that prefer not to speed up and not have to earn something in game, because everything you can get out of game, you can get just by playing for free inside the game once you've bought your first base. We're not selling power there. Bases do different things. Let me give you an example. Location, like in real world real estate, location, right? Well, it's the same in our game. But do you want to have a bunker base that's hidden off in the boonies, or do you want to have an apartment base in the heart of one of the game's metropolises, Alaria? And it's your play style that kind of dictates that. Me, I personally, like in real life, I like to be kind of away from neighbors wherever I can. So it's kind of like, where do you want to be in the world? So your location is going to matter. Things like base type. We're going to be selling different types of bases, but there's no inherent advantage for one base type over another one. It's more about what you want to, how you want to play. So for example, you want to play with you and your buddies, get a bigger base, get a warehouse base that can support, 10 or 15 players. Because the idea is what a base is in our game, it's like a deathmatch map where the defenders have set up defenses. So it's like playing a match of Rainbow Six Siege, the original, where players can actually, come in and penetrate your base. But if you've actually got defenses set up, you're going to mow them down. So we want the advantage to be on the defender. But what we are also doing is we're setting that up to be our end game. So we're trying to make it so that the outfit on outfit war is a big part of our end game. And we think that's going to be fun watching players raid each other's bases. We want those to get as large as 100 versus 100. These bases can get very large. But small bunker base, one entrance, super easy to defend. Large base, lots of entrances, much harder to defend. Has more defensive hard points. But what we're doing is we're setting it up. We have bases that are better for manufacturing, like a warehouse base is good for crafting and manufacturing because we have deep MMO elements that allow us to retain players better because they're seeing real progression out of it, like in an MMO.
Okay. So you sort of got the sort of big open world. I mean, that's sort of one way of playing, and then you've got these other sort of tight, sort of claustrophobic sort of setups as well. And obviously, for a lot of people, the guild v guild stuff is the more interesting person rather than the environment stuff.
I'm stoked about it. I personally I'm playing a lot of the game Star Citizen right now. Oh, yeah. And I fly with a group of people that we all kind of have the same interest, which is in heavy PvP. I'm like, I couldn't care less about mining in that game. I just want to blow up other people's spaceships. And just like in that game, we have the ability for us to have different size teams going up against each other. And we think that's going to be a fun part of the game.
Mm-hmm. Sort of coming towards the end, I've got a few more questions. I mean, one again, which is probably a question that can be answered sort of quite quickly. One of the interesting things for me when the announcement happened, I mean, there are lots of interesting bits of the announcement when it sort of happened. But one of the most interesting one was you're using, for your blockchain technology, you're using something called Etherlink, which is actually a Tezos L2 EVM. So Tezos is not a EVM compatible blockchain. There's been various attempts to put games on Tezos. There hasn't really been a lot of gaming on Tezos. Now it's got this EVM sort of a L2, so that's really performant and low fees and all that sort of stuff. But it's given, I don't know what your sort of level of blockchain sort of knowledge is, but given that there's an enormous amount of sort of native EVM chains out there looking for big games to sort of help sort of sell them. Why did you end up with Tezos? Not that that's a bad situation, but it's a very sort of a surprising choice, I think.
It's a super easy answer. We really liked the team there. Arthur Brightman has a brilliant vision for where he wants to go with it technically. And also the core people we're dealing with are hardcore gamers. I'm talking about the three main people we deal with. Mm-hmm. Each have over 10,000 hours in Counter-Strike. Okay. That mattered a lot to us. Being with people that see the vision the same way we do, where it's very player friendly, player first, and we're not trying to jam things down users' throats. That won us over. They're also one of our largest investors, the relationship was great right from the start. Sometimes it matters more that you want to be in the foxhole with some people that you're super excited to be in there with, and from our standpoint, like that, it was just as simple as that. Like, these are our kind of people, and it's great to be making this thing on Etherlink. And honestly, we think there's a big, bright vision. One of the things I like about them is that they're very privacy first focused chain. Arthur believes in the Web3 ethos. This is not just like a saying for him. It is a deep held belief. And that resonated well with our team here because he believes in what he's saying and making things transparent and letting they're very, very focused on their governance being something that the developers can vote for. I like that. That works for us in a really major way.
Okay, cool. Okay, so wrapping up. Where are you in terms of the roadmap? What should people be looking out for? I guess in 2025, how would they get on playlists or that sort of thing? What's the situation?
Very simple. We will be releasing a version that we're calling the Foundation Alpha in late September.
Okay.
And we're going to be releasing limited copies for both the Web 2 and Web 3 versions of the game. And very deliberately, we're going to be like letting in maybe 10,000 people total in the first run. Okay. Simply because we want to get water through the pipes. We want to get real users playing. We want to feel how good the game feels. How does the Web3 economy working out? We want to get creators in early. We want to get influencers that are streaming the game in early. Because I want users, when we ultimately launch in early 26, I want users to know what they're buying and know what they're getting into.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And sort of more generally, aside from all the sort of tech and blockchain and stuff, I mean, as I said, you've been in the game industry a long time, seen lots of different waves. I mean, how do you see it at the moment? It just seems to be in a sort of an odd situation where it's, in a sense, there's never been sort of there's more people playing games than sort of ever before. There's these big sort of successful companies, but at the same time, there's sort of some sort of existential dread against some technologies like AI and blockchain, and obviously just generally a lot of people being laid off, and it feels like a little bit like there's a loss of sort of confidence in sort of what the next games will be, as if generally you always sort of knew what the next games were going to be. I always sort of felt that, and at the moment it feels a little bit like a vacuum in there where no one's quite sure, should we just keep doing the same old sort of stuff? That doesn't really seem to have worked, but where's the next thing come from?
So first of all, I've been in the game business 36 years. That gives me a good perspective. And what I can say is the technology that continues to be on the horizon at any given point in our industry is amazing and leads to better and better games. Like, is anybody doubt that GTA 6 is going to be the largest piece of entertainment in the history of the world? I have zero doubt in my mind that that's going to happen. And as a game maker, I also see that coming down the train tracks, and I'm like, oh shit, we got to get a great game out there, before that thing launches and build a great base. So I'm definitely a believer. I also am a realist. Like, I see the reality of what companies like Embracer have, the utter destruction that has happened over the years because of this round of layoffs that in many cases simply make no sense financially, right? And I see the wreckage that I see being left behind by a lot of these companies as having a real toll on people. And we take that seriously. That's why raising money in an environment like this, it's hard, but it also makes us determined to make sure that we're making a game that has a good market fit. And I know we have that. This is the genre is filled with some really great games, including stuff that's been released recently. I mentioned Delta Force and I mentioned Arena Breakout Infinite as two examples of that. But also Gray Zone Warfare, another big one. They did over $41 million last year. You can make a great game and make a great business, and you can have a company that thrives if you invest smart and if you build smart. For example, we're proud to be partnered with a company called Big Moxie down in Brazil. They're the largest game studio in LATAM, and we cut a deal early on with them because Porto Alegre, Brazil, where they are, is this hotbed of Unreal 5 development. You have to structure your cost structure right. We've done those things so that for the long we can be around, 5 years from now, not just serve at the whims of whether or not the game can be successful. We believe we're going to be successful, but we've also planned to make sure that we're growing smart, and that as we're done with content, that we have plans for what we're doing next. So try to do this the smart way and the ethical way. The market always tells us in the end if we're doing it right, and that's why I look forward to having the game out.
Cool, good. Well, thank you very much for your time, John.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Good, and thanks to you for watching, listening, however you are consuming the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Every episode we are talking to the people who are still believing in blockchain can add something new to what's going on in gaming. So do subscribe, don't miss out, and we'll see you next time.